It's Just Business with Steve Thomas and your host, Chris Larry.
Hello and welcome to another episode of It's Just Business on the Hogstide Network, the show where we look at the dollars and the cents of the sports business, media business complex. How you doing today, Steve?
I am doing outstanding, man. It's a pleasant day here in South Texas. How about you?
Oh, I'm doing fine.
Even though you're in New York, which, isn't Texas, but you're still doing, I'm glad to hear you personally are doing fine in spite of the tyranny that is up in New York State. No comment from the peanut gallery, huh?
I actually loathe all of our leadership as well. So
I actually don't really like any of them. The truth is, the honest truth is, I don't really like any of them.
No, I'm just talking specifically about New York Democratic leadership. I'm just saying we probably have different reasons, but I am no fan of the mayor nor the governor.
Yeah, I don't think Mayor Adams is worthy of being the mayor. Probably. I don't know how he managed to get himself elected. This whole bit with this, for those of you who don't know, he's been, I can't remember, did a report come out? I think there was investigation.
No, he got indicted. Dude, this is way more deep than just he's a clown. This is,
so the indictment,
3/4 of the administration is left or has been under indictment in the last 3 weeks.
So he is under indictment because
this is big time.
He got charged with various corruption related charges.
Oh, he took all kinds of money from Turkey and gave favors, and that's just the tip of the iceberg.
And it was a lot of like little things. It was not one big thing. It was a lot of little things. Like,
oh yeah, it's just your typical
upgraded
like
to first class,
grift. Just don't even care. Yeah, just like
free
be up on
hotels
that money teat, right from Aragon or whatever.
So I have to assume his political career is probably in New York and elsewhere is probably over at this point.
Oh yeah. I mean, he's worrying about prison, no prison. That's what he's worrying about.
And from the governor of New York, I'm a conservative, and so I don't like what she stands for. But
she's a Republican, and I hate using rhino. It's so stupid. But in the context of New York State politics, where
she's conservative by New York standards,
the Republican Party is not even viable, right? To a large degree. At sometimes at the federal congressional level.
Well, because there's a bunch of conservative areas in upstate New York and stuff.
So they will have representation, and even in Long Island stuff, and that stuff will flow kind of like as the nation goes. But in terms of New York State politics, the Republican Party is not even. It's not even like a. I mean, there's one. It's in name only that it exists. So Hochul, you can easily classify her in New York State. She would be the version of a Republican in New York State.
See, that's funny because by my perspective, she's just another wacky liberal.
Oh, that's not even.
I bet
even like things like judicial appointments and stuff.
Our perspectives are very, very different. Which is a good thing, frankly.
I think if you lived here, you'd understand that. I mean, why would you even pay attention? But and Cuomo was the same way. In fact, I'd actually argue Hochul's probably a little bit to the right of Cuomo in some things.
Are you talking about? You're not talking about Mario Cuomo. You're talking about
the son, who was our last governor, when she took over for.
Yeah, he got in trouble too, though. Did he not get in trouble for something?
Yeah, she eventually was elected, but he left in disgrace. She was an appointment. She was the lieutenant governor step-in.
No, my point is, he got in trouble with some kind of corruption related stuff.
No, that was sexual harassment stuff.
Oh well, much better. Yeah.
Then he got in trouble for collusion with his brother, and that blew up.
I think that was what I was thinking.
That got the brother fired or whatever, leaving CNN. Yeah.
And the brother's a much bigger idiot than the former governor, I think, if I recall.
Oh, from an intellect level? Yeah, probably.
Yeah, he's the younger, dumber brother. By the way,
Andrew Cuomo, which is the governor, was he may be a bit of a slime ball, but he's no dummy.
Yeah, that's right. I got to show you my shirt, by the way, before we continue. For those of you who can't see, this is Los Angeles Dodgers world champions.
That's actually a handsome shirt, Steve.
I ordered this. I never do this. I ordered this during the celebration on the field, which I don't like ordering anything really, but I had to do it. And so this is the shirt that they were wearing on the field that day. So very happy. I mean, people don't understand that Dodger fans have been waiting for this for more than a generation. Because to your point, like the COVID year counted, but it sort of didn't count. It was just kind of like there's an asterisk by it. The fact that our Dodgers finally got a true uncontested World Series after all these years is really, really neat. After years of failure.
I think it somewhat diminishes the asterisk on the COVID year championship, because if you can back it up with a championship a couple years removed, then it sort of makes, okay, so you were worthy. It almost like it helps the COVID year championship.
Yeah, I get it, but my point is, like, in the moment, you can't go back and relive the moment.
No. Yeah, it was a dead cat bounce type of thing.
Right.
100%. But as you go back, it makes it easier just to be like, see, another championship when you like run through the list.
I mean, there's no doubt that they've been a great team, but they have underperformed in the playoffs for years and years and years and years.
Yes, as a national supporter, I remember.
Yeah, that one I wasn't happy about. I will never, but I think the Houston Astros have become my most hated American sports franchise.
Well, it's one thing to cheat. It's another thing just to get beat.
Yeah, I mean, the time the Dodgers were in with the Boston Red Sox, didn't like it, was okay with it. Red Sox are a better team. And period, dot, the end, they were better. And I can live with that. I cannot live with them, cheating to win.
Yeah. Speaking of sports paraphernalia, I actually broke down, or maybe I did it in celebration, and bought from the official fan site a burgundy and gold with the gold W baseball cap. I think it was my first purchase piece of Washington memorabilia in, I don't know, 20 years, 15, 20 years.
Traitor.
It's a W.
You're still supporting the C word. So, I mean,
I had to get over it. I'm too excited. I had to get over it. But then I bought I bought two things. But the other thing I bought was from, I think it isn't officially licensed, but some like, third brand weird hipster sweatshirt.
Oh, you did? It's not even a licensed thing? Or?
I mean, it's like they have whatever blanket license to use, but it's like, it's got the colors, there's hogs, there's a skeleton in a number 5 jersey. So it's very wacky.
Oh, it's random skeleton for no real reason. If I'm going to wear anything,
no Commander's imagery.
Yeah, I'm going to wear Redskins. If I'm going to wear something, it's, my colleague on the Hogsty, Dave Earl, sent us a picture. He didn't send it to you, of him in a black Washington jersey. And I was like, man,
I hate that. I hate that so much.
Well, a family member bought it for him, and so he's appreciative of the gesture his family member, made and all of that. But it's like, I was like, man, you're wearing a fake Steelers jersey,
So speaking of, one of the reasons I was motivated to purchase new gear outside of my excitement, although a little bit tampered by a
beat down in Philly.
Yeah. But if you were clear-eyed, you knew it was coming.
I did predict it, just for the record.
But then I bought that stuff because I was at the Steelers game.
Oh, you were? Oh, you went to the Steelers game, huh?
I went to the Steelers game, yeah.
So, but at least you didn't wear a black Washington jersey.
These people.
Who does that? Who's stupid enough to do that?
Yeah, I mean that, or like and this was mostly this was a Snyder thing, and now I got to now it's been enough time. I have to start to get the demarcation line. When we wore black on prime time when we were playing the Bears, good move, guys. Good move.
It's like the Snyder era. It's like we cut you like you're the victim of a crime, and it takes a minute to get over the PTSD of suffering through the crime before you can talk about it. That is kind of the Washington fans with the Snyder era. It's like once we've removed a couple of years, you can slowly start to talk about your feelings again. That's where we are.
Yes, see me purchasing hat. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm too stubborn. I'm never going to do it. I'm never going to root for it, but I'm ridiculously stubborn and obstinate. So,
well, I did maneuver all of my purchasing to be around any overt Commanders branding or imagery.
And I can appreciate I can appreciate that. That's good.
But if they go, last thing on this, but if they win 11 or above, the name's locked. It's done.
The name's locked anyway. I got news for you.
Yeah, I think that's probably the trend. But then look at our season gives you the excuse.
Well, this is actually kind of a businessy topic. I know we got to get to our real topic, but when you're talking about branding, I think that the group that people are most interested in is 18 to 34. And then sometimes you can see expanded 18 to 45, but that is the target audience. The target audience is not the 50-plus-year-olds who lived through the Super Bowl era in the 80s, right? Because to be perfectly frank, they don't have a ton of years of fandom left as compared to their younger friends. And so the younger people only knew, if you are maybe 30 and under, you realistically only knew the Snyder era, even early 30s, because you were too young. And so in that respect, they have nothing but bad associated with Washington. And so I think Josh Harris is a smart guy and inherently knows that he doesn't really need to rebrand necessarily, because the younger crowd has no agency in the name anyway. And so I think he thinks correctly that if he just wins and turns the franchise into something approach professionalism, that the younger crowd will come along, even if the people in our generation or a little older they don't really care about that. They're building for the future, and that's kind of the way to do marketing. I don't like it, don't agree with it in this case, but I think that's the theory, and he's probably right.
And that's also, we got to remember, this was not Josh Harris's choice, right? So it's, it's a hand he was dealt.
No, but he is what it is. But but to rebrand it again to something else that people like you and me still aren't going to like because it's not Redskins, doesn't really serve a purpose too much for him.
If they limped into, if they did whatever, I can never remember the 17 schedule math, but if they had 6 wins max again, right? Then that flips, because the toxicity might be so high, it changes the conversation. It might even be worth the investment. But because the trends are everything you're saying already, and then you put everything that's happened, even if they go like 10-7 and with a young, exciting quarterback, you're just going to be like, this is who we are now.
Yeah, because I don't think I do think Commanders is a stupid name for a football team. And it's sort of because again, I've said it before, but like, you're either naming yourself after a mid-grade naval officer, or you're saying everybody in the room is a commander, and therefore nobody's really in charge. And it's a stupid name. But if they win, they will follow. It's like who's the old fairy tale? Pied Piper. It's like Pied Piper. If
with Jaden Daniels as the Pied Piper.
Yes, exactly right. And the younger crowd is not thinking so much about the intricacies of what commander means. They just know it's their hometown team. They may think it's stupid, but they think what's less stupid is the team winning, and they'll come along. And whereas I'm way more stubborn than average, and and you and I are older, and we remember Redskins, and some of us aren't going to get over it, but they don't really care about us.
No, and the truth is, they feel they probably have the numbers to say they're going to shave more my way, which is like, okay, I'll start buying a hat or whatever.
And that's the truth. Yeah,
right. That out of even our unimportant age group, they figure, we'll probably get 60% of them back anyway. My obstinance is off the charts. An outlier.
Yes, I recognize that. And there's a few of me out there like me, but not many. More people are going to be like you. Dave Earl from the Hogsty, he's come around. Alex Zeese has some stuff now. He's come around. He's a few years younger, but still, that's probably more the case than somebody like me who's just going to go, F you guys. Most people won't do that.
And then the last thing I'll say is also, like, my brother who lives in the area, who has season tickets, he's got a 6 or 7 year old son, my nephew. He doesn't know. All he knows is the team is fun and good, and he'll, and it's not that that's a big demographic, but parents of that age group are. And
that's the point, because the parents of a 6-year-old are going to probably be in their late
Commanders,
20s, early 30s at most, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing is, I'm even more of an outlier. I don't live in Washington.
Right.
It's not really, nor is it even really my hometown team or anything, because of my strange background, my very, very mobile background. So I am way more of an outlier, and I think the Harris administration over there correctly assumes that most people are going to come along if they just win.
I'll figure out a way to get it online. I do enjoy tailgating, and I said to my brothers, because we were, going to get a 1 game this year, and I was like, can we please not be the Pittsburgh Steelers game? Because I know I already accept that it's a stadium takeover no matter who they're playing, although that's starting to change. But like, I don't want the 1 game I don't want to go to the one where even if we had a good team with a home field experience and a good stadium, you'd get taken over by, right? Steelers take over everybody. So I was like, and then of course that was the only one that worked out on everybody's schedule.
So you had to go to Steelers.
So we had to go to the Steelers game, and it was so many. It was so nauseating. And this guy on like the local Fox Channel 5 or whatever does like a live pregame thing, and then they throw it up on YouTube. And I was probably half drunk, and I just ruined this interview with the Steelers fan. I was just like, go up, just screaming. Then
you were that guy who did that? Oh, God.
And then they came over to me and I just went off. These people aren't even from Pittsburgh. Like I went off on them. But it was great because it was a fun outlet that then got it out of my system. And then I could act like an adult the rest of the day.
In the meantime, it's memorialized forever on the local news.
It's pretty funny.
See, we've stumbled.
This a-hole's not even from Pittsburgh.
Now, did you see many Washington fans wearing black Washington jerseys?
You know what? To their credit, not that many. Some, of course, some. I mean, yes, but there seemed to be an awareness to not do that.
It's only the very, very stupid out there.
Yeah. But the fan base is coming back. That was a tough day all the way around, but there was a pep in the step in the fan base that probably hasn't been there for 12 years.
See, we stumbled onto a sports business topic without even realizing it.
Yes, there we go. So yeah, transformation in real time there.
Yeah. I was serious. It's a kind of a valid marketing topic.
I know Josh Harris is a big listener of this. So Josh, your 76ers are what? They 3-9 or 2-7 or something like that. And Joel Embiid's getting suspended, hasn't played, is on some like one game every 2 weeks rotation. Sell it. We've been talking about NBA valuations. What the 76ers get? 5-6 billion?
6 million at least. Yeah.
I know that's not the exact same ownership group, blah, blah, blah. You could almost get your money back on Washington by just selling your stake in the 76ers. Do it.
Well, I mean, he's going to have partners. He probably would get more than $3 billion out of it. Probably he'd get maybe half of his investment back.
Yeah, that's stadium funds, baby.
Clear up a bunch of debt.
Yeah. Anyway,
Dave Ramsey would be proud.
I think, Steve, what we're doing here is we're vamping, we're voguing, we're trying to avoid what is obviously the biggest sports business story here as we record this on Saturday morning on the 16th. And this is this train wreck on every possible way in which you would judge a sporting event, from the product to the presentation. What a mess this Tyson-Paul fight was.
It was absolutely terrible. The first and most, there were several things, and I'm glad you mentioned that. The first and most obvious is that Netflix was completely unable and unprepared for the amount of people that tried to watch it. I think I put something out. I was my biweekly Twitter appearance last night, mentioning that I personally could not watch this appropriately. My son tried to watch it. We tried it on phones, on TVs, on tablets. I went into my hacked site where I watched the football games. It was a Netflix problem. They somehow, either they didn't anticipate the popularity of this event, or their servers, they might have, but they couldn't do anything about their servers. That's first and most important. That is important because they are about to broadcast games theoretically on Christmas Day, which will be this big or bigger of an audience, almost assuredly. So that's number one.
Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, that's problem number one. So let's start your thoughts on that, because I want to get into some of the other stuff too.
I think when we talked about versions of this, which I think WWE, which that's coming to Netflix, and they were
not quite this big an audience, but it's going to be a big audience.
And they should have I think I said when they started to put their toe, even before we had any idea about the Christmas Day games, I said they're getting these trash events so that they can iron out the kinks.
Yeah, you said that.
They're streaming, and they even messed that up, right? That should have been 6 months ago. That should have been 8 months ago. And the NFL is stupid because they should have had Netflix jump through those hoops first. I mean, it's crazy to me. It's gonna. I don't know, what is it. It's 5 weeks to Christmas Day. Something
roughly.
Yeah. So Are they really? And I know they're basically, I think it's NBC. I can't remember. They're basically like borrowing the entire production crew from a network that regularly broadcasts NFL games. I get that, but we're not even talking about that. We're actually talking about getting the signal into people's homes. Not only they have the biggest. Notice what word I'm leaving out here. The biggest entertainment offering in America, the NFL, and they can't keep their buffering rate at the appropriate level. You couldn't even get through a round.
Were you able to watch the fight last night? I gave up. I quit and went to bed.
It was choppy and cloudy was the norm. And then I think 2 times per round, I'm basically refreshing the feed.
Yeah. So I just gave up. I'm not going to watch a fight in that circumstance.
This is the exact same setup that through YouTube's NFL Ticket, through Amazon Prime Thursday games, I have watched this year alone, I don't know, 30 football games without a glitch.
I was very surprised that Netflix was this unprepared, considering they are the oldest entertainment streaming service.
Right. They should theoretically, but I just think it shows how different some of this technology is and how you set yourself up to be. And they are Johnny come latelys in that part.
Yeah. I mean, and you and I aren't tech heads like this, and we probably should have got Alex Cease on here maybe to talk about some of the specifics on it, but I was very surprised. I think the NFL needs to be very worried. I don't know what they can do to fix it in 5 weeks. Do they need more servers? I don't know what the technical answer to it is. It's not my field, but I doubt they can get much done in 5 weeks, and I think the NFL should be very, very worried.
They're probably picking up the phone and calling Amazon and saying, how much money can we do to license your infrastructure?
Well, yeah, if that works, they still got to be broadcast through Netflix one way or the other.
Yeah. I could not believe it. And they just bragged earlier this week. I saw this like a, sports business headline, pretty obvious. So it wasn't even one that I paid that much attention to. We're at Netflix. We're sold out of all inventory on ads on our NFL games. Well,
congratulations.
Duh.
Yeah.
Like, okay. But then, so that was like barely noticeable on Wednesday. Now, okay, great. So, and we know what kind of advertisers are stepping up at those prices. If you think the NFL's quaking in their boots, think of some of ththese advertisers who just got
paying a truckload of money and they're not even going to be able to see the ads because of the refresh rates.
Now, of course, if the event was at Jerry's World, Jerry Jones's, Dallas Stadium, blah, blah, blah. So, this is from Pro Football Talk, again, leading up to the match.
You're just cite Mike Florio, huh? Go ahead. It's okay.
Worldwide coverage with Netflix, Jones said. We're all being introduced to Netflix. We're so excited in the NFL about Netflix becoming a huge part of our future. This tonight gives us a chance to go to 40, 50 million people and do it from right here. So, I mean, here's the guy who's hosting you, who's, would love to be in your shorts. He's probably, I bet, taking some credit for brokering this deal. I would bet behind closed doors, bragging about 40 or 50 million people literally hours before the broadcast. So it wasn't a shock people were going to turn in.
I think Jerry's probably at this moment suffering through a depression-induced hangover. That's what
he's not had a good couple of months.
No, he has not. And so yes, so they need to fix something. I think it's reasonable to think that the NFL broadcast on Christmas Day might be a similar train wreck because I don't know what they can get done in 5 weeks. But I also thought the production was kind of amateur hour.
It was trash. Yeah, it was straight trash.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Rosie Perez. An actress, not even. So when I first heard, I turned it on like 20 minutes into it. I heard her. I thought, okay, female, must be a female boxer, an athlete or something. No, an actress who's been fairly irrelevant at that for a long time now. What are you guys doing? And so I thought the announcing team had nothing substantive to say at all.
The only thing I'll add on that, because that was, I was like, Rosie Perez, really? The even more damning statement to build off that was she was the best broadcaster.
Yeah. You'd think Roy Jones could have done well, but
she actually knew her stuff well enough. She She knows how to talk in front of a microphone. She was easily the most professional.
Because Roy Jones cannot talk on a microphone at all. He was absolutely terrible.
It was ridiculous. And I didn't even know who any of these people were. It was like,
well, that was the other part of it, is that the undercard was not a normal undercard. I don't know a ton about women's boxing, so but I'm told that the women's fight that was the final undercard.
It was a great fight.
Yeah, it was a good fight, but I'm also told that those two women are big names, and so
it's a rematch and stuff.
Yeah, I'll carve that out. But the rest of them, and nobody knew who they were. They weren't big names in boxing at all. It was, the whole thing struck me as kind of amateur hour, like exactly like Netflix is going to try to put together a boxing match, and this is the result. That is what you would expect.
Again, that fight was the only, and it's a more damning statement because it's the only legitimate athletic thing they put on their stage, so to speak. I mean, let's get to the main event a little bit, right?
That's a point to that too. So go ahead. Yeah. So that wasn't done.
which I'm like and they fished me in, right? So some of this is I'm mad. You hear me angry. I don't get generally this upset about things. Because I feel suckered, right? Like I feel gross. I needed a shower after watching it. I should have been smarter. But that, I mean, and you're like, of course, this guy's 58, like he's standing on two pencils. Like, what are we do? Where is the culture here?
Well, yes, that was, I'm glad you brought this up. Because I saw like most of the first round before my feed
between glitching.
Before I just got frustrated and turned it off. But Mike Tyson is beloved. Certainly one of the greatest boxers in history of the sport. He looked like an old man who doesn't belong in the ring. The whole thing was always a joke. Jake Paul is a YouTuber, and I can't remember the other kid. What's his brother? They both, whatever his name is,
Jason, I think, maybe,
whatever it is.
Yeah, who cares?
They both are boxers. One of them is not a real boxer.
I think he's in the WWE.
Yeah, Jake Paul is sort of considered to be kind of a legitimate, professional level talent, but he's not a championship level boxer. He's the type of guy that Tyson in his prime would have wiped off the face of the earth in a round. It would have been that, but
8 years ago, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. But putting Mike Tyson out there and obviously paying him a truckload of money to embarrass himself like that against a YouTuber to put a circus like spectacle on was embarrassing.
And then not hold the stream.
Yeah, and I felt bad for him. Clearly they're paying him a lot of money, and he wanted the money. And I don't disparage him for turning down money, but I thought people were using Mike Tyson in a manner that was ill-befitting of professional sports.
Yeah, and then you probably didn't. I couldn't agree more. It was so sad, and like that's why I'm saying I felt gross because and I had Mike Tyson, Punch Out Nintendo in my head. I've got, grew up this guy, and I wanted him to just glass jaw.
I really wanted him to knock that punk out.
Right. And then I'm like, well, and then I'm like, of course he's not going to do like what, how did I even think for a second that this was even going to be watchable?
Well, we shouldn't have thought that. And there was also precedent for this, which was George Foreman, who came back at much younger than 58, and he looked like a shell of himself too. And nobody should have expected Tyson, who looked like a shell of himself the last time he was out there, just less of a shell of himself, maybe. And this was never going to work. And it would have been one thing if they'd put him in front of like a real boxer, not a YouTuber, social media star. I thought just the whole thing was shameful. Now, and what very little I saw of the fight sort of conformed to what I read about it this morning, which was it wasn't a very good fight.
No,
Tyson can't move, can't punch, can't do anything, and Jake Paul isn't a real boxer, really. And so it was just, and the articles I read this morning said the crowd kind of booed it a little bit or seemed restless. They're live, which doesn't surprise me. If Netflix is going to try to put on, well, get your tech right first, but try to put on a real fight. Well, how about that? Don't put a spectacle out there. Do a real fight.
That's what I think I said. I think when I said that they needed to test their pipes for a while before they joined the major leagues, I think it was about them signing the WWE
Yeah.
contract. And that makes perfect sense. Do that 6 to 8 months beforehand. Because yes, if your stream sucks for a couple goes at it, the wrestling fans will be angry, but okay, we can all
Yeah, there'll be
survive. And
another
it's
wrestling.
fake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
The whole thing's fake. So you wait, they'll get it right. But this now in reality, this was as big a joke with worse production
Yes.
values and worse entertainment. So
Yes.
acknowledgments all around on
Because you
that.
can get with behind wrestling and accept that it's fake and it's entertainment and be fine
It's
with
a
it.
better. It was a better
Yeah.
product than whatever that was last night.
Right.
100%. But this one was like, then it was real enough where they raised their own stakes, right? Like,
Yeah.
so, with the sort of fake reality of it all. And then even putting on the women's battle, which at least was like a legitimate, like in the
I
world of
couldn't watch it
boxing.
though because my
Yeah.
feed was I just gave up. I would also point out, by the way, that the whole reason why the fight was in Texas, in particular, was because the various boxing commissions, the
Would
licensing
allow
commission,
it.
that Texas was the only one that allowed it. Probably because Jerry Jones, bullied him into it. Probably would be my guess. But Nevada refused to sanction the fight, and the reason is because Mike Tyson is almost 60. They know that that's not what you do. You don't put a 60-year-old in a ring.
Yeah.
So the whole thing was a joke from the beginning. If it were me, what I would have told net, because they did that because they know it wasn't going to be a good fight. They did it because of the spectacle, obviously, and it suckered a bunch of people. And Mike Tyson's back. We all remember Mike Tyson in his heyday. What they should have done: find some legitimate boxers, put a legitimate card together. ESPN does this on the weekends sometimes. Do one of those. You're not going to get a huge audience, but it's a test bed, and it will prove that you're serious about sports. Because what this proved to me is that you're not serious about sports. That's what it proved to me last night.
Yeah. So there we go. Let's probably close the door on this one, and we'll see. There will be now. This is we should look this up, but I don't. They may have a WWE that might premiere before Christmas Day. They better hope. They better plan that.
I don't know the answer to that. I'm going to try to look here real fast.
Because then if they get a couple other test runs, I mean, they're going to need a couple dress rehearsals here. Oh man, they got to be quaking at the NFL offices.
Okay, so the very first thing that popped up on my Google search, so I don't vouch necessarily for its accuracy, but it says on the Netflix US version of Netflix, you'll find Raw listed for January 6, 2025.
Oof.
Yep. So your test bed's going to be the NFL, baby.
Oh my
Good luck with
good
that.
golly.
Yeah. Okay. Here's another one. Yeah. So there's multiple sites here. Just again, me scanning the Google search results, 2025.
That is interesting.
How scared do you think the NFL is?
I think they've got to be frightened, right? Because it was such a dumb move, I think, on so many levels to do these Christmas Day games.
Especially since Christmas is on a Wednesday.
Yeah, right. Right. You can't even use it. It's just like an inside straight of bad, which this could be the capper.
Well, there's a marketing aspect to this too for me. So I don't mind mentioning it here. There's a such thing as oversaturation of a marketplace. And you see that a lot, like movie franchises, they'll make one too many movies that it'll tank, like see Star Wars, for example. Sports. So the NFL has ruled Sundays for multiple generations, 60 years, 50 years, maybe, whatever the number is. If you keep putting the product, part of why it's fun is that it's Sunday. You talk about it all week, the excitement builds up. And then there's kind of a cathartic release on Sunday where you can sit around and watch these games. If they put games on every day of the week, it doesn't become as special. It's almost kind of like addiction. If you keep, your dopamine hit keeps getting, more and more. I'm saying it poorly. You need more and more to get your dopamine hit. And if you oversaturate the market with NFL games, it's going to cease to be as special and as big a thing as it is. And so Christmas Day on a Wednesday, just let it go. Yeah, let it go.
And now if you package it with frustrating fans. Maybe even like maybe let's say it was like a game on NBC and a game on CBS or whatever with the normal type stuff, and those broadcasters stepped in to do the Christmas Day games, and there was maybe meh ratings, or it was like, then like, okay, we kind of touched the burner on the stove a little bit and pulled back. But this now wraps it, because it's like, Netflix, is the stream going to be good? Now you just put all these wrappers of like extra risk.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So I think the NFL has made a mistake with it, and I think they have every right to be really nervous, and they ought to be like getting Elon Musk to ship servers to Netflix or something,
Presented by Starlink.
Exactly.
All right. So, little less passionate discussion here, but Diamond Sports, the regional sports network, and regional sports networks in general have been taking a pummeling as consumer habits change rapidly. But it looks like Diamond Sports is at least crawling themselves out of bankruptcy, and for their what they're left with, which I think is a handful of NBA, NHL, and Major League Baseball teams, is about to come back from the dead.
Amazingly enough. So this is the Athletic / the New York Times. Broadcaster Diamond will emerge from bankruptcy after judge approves plan by Evan Dralich, who I think we've done his stories before, November 14th. So look, Diamond Sports, as we talked about before, was in bankruptcy, and they submitted a reorganization plan. The judge could have rejected that plan and ordered the company liquidated, which is frankly pretty good shot that was going to happen. So the story here is that the judge actually did approve the reorganization plan. What that means is the company, assuming they can complete the plan, will continue and will exist. And so then that means that there are 13 NBA teams, 8 NHL teams, and 6 Major League Baseball teams that are signed up through Diamond. And again, this is your local broadcast rights owner here. So Diamond has a bunch of local broadcast stations that are broadcast local. They're doing all this. What certainly MLB was hoping was that they could claw all of that back and then repackage that in an master MLB contract kind of thing. So they didn't really want Diamond to succeed. And I'm assuming NHL and NBA probably, felt the same way. But I think it's a big deal to Diamond, but I think it's sort of the last vestiges of a struggling model that's going to continue on for a few more years. And then once this contract is up, there's going to be no more local broadcasts. That's what I think.
Yeah, and you can even, in some of the reformation plans, you start to see walking towards that anyway. They're going to have an Amazon deal, which basically lets Amazon, passing it on to the consumer, pay a carriage fee, kick back to Diamond Sports for Amazon to be the distributor. So if you're out of market, you could buy the whatever Detroit Pistons, I think, is definitely one. You could buy the Detroit Pistons package or something along those lines. So they're already in their crawling back to life. You can already see them walking down some of these roads.
You want to know all the teams? I have all the teams.
Go for it.
Okay. On NBA, it's the Charlotte Hornets, Cleveland Cavaliers, Detroit Pistons, Indiana Pacers, Los Angeles Clippers, Memphis Grizzlies, Miami Heat, Milwaukee Bucks, Minnesota Timberwolves, Oklahoma City Thunder, Orlando Magic, San Antonio Spurs. NHL is the Carolina Hurricanes, Columbus Blue Jackets, Detroit Red Wings, Los Angeles Kings, Minnesota Wild, Nashville Predators, St. Louis Blues, and Tampa Bay Lightning. And if you give me a second here, I've got the baseball. It's in another spot. Here we go. At the Atlanta Braves, Detroit Tigers, Los Angeles Angels, Miami Marlins, St. Louis Cardinals, and Tampa Bay Rays. So I would say that they have a combination of small to mid-sized market teams with one or two big names in each sport, I would say. I would say the Atlanta Braves, especially, big market, big history of broadcasting, all of that.
Yeah, that's kind of a funny aside, the Braves one, because, in many ways, the Atlanta Braves invented regional to national distribution. So them to be like caught up in this kind of circling the drain is kind of that's a far fall.
Right. And at the NBA, I mean, most of these are I mean, Miami Heat maybe a slightly bigger market. The Clippers, but they've always been, second fiddle in Los Angeles. Now on the NHL, the Detroit Red Wings are a major, major name, as are the Kings. I would say the Kings are too, but not like the Red Wings. And so I'm sure Detroit would want to rescue them from this. So I think this is just delaying the inevitable. And at some point, Amazon's going to realize we don't really need Diamond for this.
Right. Or they'll just buy their contracts from,
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. And there, Diamond could be a kind of a backstage production company and continue to exist. But the idea that there's going to be, once we get through these contracts, the idea that there's going to continue to be local sports networks doing all this, I think is ancient history.
Yeah. And in fact, even in the sort of dead man walking version that Diamond Sports might, be going into for a couple of years, or maybe that's not fair. They're walking the path to transition. They're already going to. Now I lost my train of thought. Damn.
It happens every once in a while. Yeah, I need to vamp here while Chris thinks about where he's going with this.
Yeah. Anyway, it's long
yeah,
gone.
I can't remember, but point is, this is another delaying the inevitable. Okay, we've talked about the transition to streaming and all of that. What makes the most sense to me for every major sport is for the sports themselves to sell the entire package to somebody. If it's Amazon, if it's streaming directly from the MLB / hockey / National Basketball Association, websites. There's no real need for local sports networks like this anymore.
No, and I totally agree. The leagues were rooting. They want these rights back. They want to negotiate that.
We heard that it was baseball was being difficult about, wanting to.
They don't want this.
They have a contractual obligation because they're sucked into the contract. But it seems to me, if you read between the lines, they were kind of rooting for the bankruptcy court to liquidate.
100%. I do remember what I was going to say is that even Diamond Sports and these regional networks, as we see them branded right now, aren't going to exist, because another piece of them clawing their way back is actually a rebrand of FanDuel, or a bunch of co-branding with FanDuel.
Yeah, that's true. That in this column we cited mentions that this is going to be rebranded as FanDuel.
Even like from an external branding perspective, this Diamond, they're transitioning away from Diamond Sports and going into FanDuel. And then so now if you consider FanDuel and Amazon as their overlords here, they're going to your point, one of those partner agents companies is going to just eventually see them as infrastructure and licenses and just develop,
that's develop exactly them. Right. Because as much of an anachronism in many things as I am, where I recognize that the local regional sports channels were vestiges of an era in which it was 100% cable television. And that's how you could watch your local. If you were in, Minneapolis, you could watch the Twins was from the local regional sports channel that would do the Twins.
Usually with an upsell as part of an upsell package from basic cable.
Yeah. Because you're having to pay another $5 a month on your cable bill or whatever. And I don't know what I wish we need to probably find the numbers of cable holders versus streaming only people for a future show, because I'd be interested to see a comparison of what it was some number of years ago versus now. Obviously it's less, but what are the numbers? And I don't have that in front of me. We'll find.
We should do it over the first episode to now of the podcast, because that's actually a pretty interesting,
perfect
span of time.
We'll do some research into that. Maybe on a future show, we'll come back with that.
One other interesting thing about this case was the comments from Judge Chris Lopez, which were you don't normally, maybe I'm not always pouring through judicial, decisions, etc., and written opinions, but he basically goes on, I have to think about all parties, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But I'm also thinking about other folks, Judge Chris Lopez said when delivering his ruling. Today, you're going to you're going to save a lot of jobs. There's going to be somebody who's going to turn on their television and be able to watch the Detroit Tigers, the judge continued. Then that's really important. It sounds not important, but it's important if you've had a stressful day and you want to root for your team and go home and enjoy the game with family. And hardcore fans are hardcore fans and they want to see their teams play, and rooting for them is just as part of the American experience as anything else. So this judge told you right there that some of his ruling in terms of this was just because the disruption may be coming, but he wanted to at least represent the voice of the fan here, which is going to be, as you know, no shocker, screwed in the in-between time for this stuff to get sorted. And it seems like to me, he based parts of his judgment on the fact that letting Diamond Sports up from the mat a little bit and be a bridge to whatever the new reality is that isn't necessarily so disruptive, expensive, and annoying for customers seemed to be part of his judicial thinking, which I thought was kind of remarkable.
Absolutely. And because if people aren't clear about this, the current status of for most of these teams, you can order the MLB package, for example, directly from MLB. And if in a variety and streaming only, and you can do it through some cable and some other services and stuff. There's a couple packages, but the rules do not allow you to watch your home team. And if you're in the home market, okay, because these regional sports networks have the rights to a lot of these teams. And so, so you are unable to watch your local team through those streaming through those packages. And so so this judge is recognizing that it's sort of good for local society, if you will, to allow people to watch their local teams. That's what he's saying. But so the end game to this is to eliminate the inability to watch the local team through the purchase streaming packages, because they're trying to steer you to these regional sports networks. Contractually, they have to. So to eliminate that and just allow it to be any other game on the streaming service, that is the ultimate goal. And the judge recognized that right now that's not possible. And there have been teams in which, like the Dodgers, got caught up in this for years because they were in a fight with not Comcast, the other one, Time Warner, for a couple of years, and nobody could watch Dodger games easily, at least in the LA area. And that's not the only one that's had that happen to. So that's the judge recognizing reality. But fast forward a couple of years after this they're never teams will not do this contract again. I promise you. And this will all be fixed in a few years.
And I think what Judge Lopez here is saying and hoping with this ruling, with that at least it might be a more easier transition. Because if you actually use these things to bridge to next, maybe by the time it does, because you're 100% right, it's just delaying the inevitable. But if you can make the path to inevitable better and more coordinated, and not just, ram down consumers' throats by the need for speed of the corporate interests, then, maybe you can get there in a more sensible path.
Yes. Absolutely. But it's just not where we are right now. And so I think the prediction time here, at some point, Diamond, they may not disappear, but they're going to become a behind the scenes production provider of some type. That's what's going to happen.
An IP holder.
Yes. Or just a production company. We can produce these games and we're going to sell them to, whoever we're allowed to sell them to.
Last story we got is kind of a funny one, although it had to be a bit of a learning curve for me. So apparently,
John, you didn't know this.
I didn't know this. So John Tesh, I guess, wrote the famous NBC basketball theme song.
Well, let's stop right here, by the way. So John Tesh was he was on what, Entertainment Tonight, was it?
Yeah. What is his trajectory? Was he sports, then entertainment?
No. He's
everything.
I think John Tesh fundamentally is a musician.
And but when was our introduction to him as a broadcaster?
Okay, you're going to make me look this. Because we can't look this up before the show. We have to do this, during the show, of course. So, John Tesh, first of all, is born in 1952, so he is in his mid 70s now. But okay, so his television career started in local TV in Nashville in the 70s. Then he went to Entertainment Tonight, which was entertainment rumor show basically in the 80s and 90s. Then he went to CBS, NBC as a sports anchor. The music career, I think, it says it started in the 80s. Yeah, Yanni had him do something with him. Remember Yanni? Not My Speed.
His first studio album was 1987, Music from the Tour de France, Volume 1.
So he was fundamentally a broadcaster first, got into music kind of as a side venture, if you will. So go ahead.
So I was just in that. I think actually his run on, it's kind of interesting. So his run on Entertainment Tonight was 1986 to 1996. So actually those his early, kind of national success in broadcasting with Entertainment Tonight maps pretty good to that first couple album release.
It does. It does. By the way, if you want to read about this, it's CNBC on CNBC Sport. NBC still doesn't have a deal for Don Tesh's Roundball Rock theme by Alex Sherman, dated November 14th. So go ahead.
So here, I'll start with this angle on this story. So musicians get ripped off all the time, and they're very stupid, and it's been, as scam as old as recorded music. But the smart ones, the ones that actually produced, wealth for themselves and sometimes generational wealth, understand the value of the copyright on their material. And so what essentially is, John Tesh was a smart one in this case. And we don't necessarily know how he got there, but he holds the rights to this song. And so now
tell them what the song is, though.
With Roundball Rock, right?
Yeah, but okay, Roundball Rock is the name of the song, but where you've heard, everybody knows this song. It was the theme to NBC's NBA coverage,
right? When it was like NBA on NBC was a big cultural thing.
I'd be tempted to play it, but we get busted for copyrights, and so I'm not going to play
it. This is litigious John. Litigious John Tesh.
Clearly, yeah.
A good comp was, if you watch Stranger Things, you remember in that last season that Kate Bush song that became part of a plot device blew up. Well, Kate Bush was another smart one. She owned the right. She made something like $6 million in like a week. Now that often would go to whoever holds whether it was a record company or somebody, but she was smart enough to procure her rights to her music, just like John Tesh. So when you have a moment here, he sits in the driver's seat. NBC wants the song, right? They want to have a bridge to when they had NBA before. But here's John Tesh.
So let's explain something. Okay, so the reason why many of these artists don't have rights to their songs is that they're under contract with record companies. Chris knows all about this because he's got some family members involved in some of this stuff. And the contracts with the record companies, normally, unless you have a lot of leverage, meaning you're Paul McCartney or someone, but even Paul McCartney had to buy his stuff back, years later.
And then was outbid by Michael Jackson.
Yeah, right. But I think he finally has it back now, I think. But
I don't think so.
No? Okay. Anyway, the record companies specify in their contracts with artists that they will hold the copyrights to the music. And so every once in a while, you'll see somebody try to get them back. Motley Crue bought their music back from Elektra years ago. And Taylor Swift famously got in a war with who's the guy in the old, I can't remember his name.
Well, Kanye West and Scooter Braun.
Yeah, there you go. Taylor Swift got in a war with Scooter Braun over it and re-recorded albums because of it. And so the difference here is that Tesh didn't just write the song and put it on an album. Tesh was under contract with the NBA to write a song for them. And so this was not produced for Time Warner or somebody. This was a contract with the NBA. And so in that regard, the NBA was too stupid to say they own the copyright. Tesh originally kept the copyright to his song, and that is why he can now. So the story, by the way, here. Sorry, we didn't really tell you what the story is. Story here is that NBC, when did this happen? NBC recently announced that the song Roundball Rock would be returning as a part of I'm quoting from the story, as a part of the company's big $2.45 billion per year deal with the league in order to broadcast games once again. That deal begins next season. Now, they said that, but they hadn't actually negotiated a contract with Tesh for the use of the song. They just kind of said, we'll negotiate. To quote again, the executives only assured Tesh they will negotiate and they will negotiate with him for the rights in good faith. And then they, as probably a pressure tactic, said, yeah, we're going to have the song. And so that is the story here, is that Tesh thus far has not agreed to their terms and is contemplating selling this song to other broadcasters. So that is the story here. And the idea that Tesh has kept the rights to the song is probably because it was not done in conjunction with the record company.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of a dumb mistake on NBC's part, right? Like
they should have known better.
But just by the nature of the ownership, as we've already detailed, Tesh already had a bunch of leverage. You just gave him another whole pile of leverage by coming out there and talking about it and promising it to people.
But if you go back to the 80s, though, they probably thought, we have this little contract with this guy to produce this dumb little theme song. We're going to play 20 seconds of it. It's not any big deal. Just we'll pay him X amount of money and that's it. And nobody thought it would turn into like this iconic, song that represents basketball. Nobody thought that. Maybe they should have, but I think that was probably what happened. It's like, what Don Tesh wasn't exactly, the forefront of the music industry in the 80s. Okay. He was there. But he wasn't exactly, again, he's not McCartney, or they're not talking to Bruce Springsteen here. They're talking to John Tesh or even Yanni. John Tesh does it as a side gig, and so I think they just nobody thought it was going to be what it was, but NBC has a bunch of lawyers and maybe they should have thought about it.
Yeah, 100%. It's kind of funny. And, but John Tesh who I'm sure is living a very comfortable life, by the way, but he's going to be in for a nice payday here eventually.
Yeah. I should have, if I had thought about it, I guess I could have recorded my own guitar version of this thing in another key and we could have played it here and maybe tried to get away with it. But
round. Well, aren't we allowed to use, isn't it something like if it's under like 12 seconds or something like that?
So the rule, no. You cannot use copyrighted material, period. However, there's what's called a fair use exception, which allows a limited use of a song for purposes of like legitimate analysis. So we could have, if we had done a thing and I had done a show that was talking about like the key of Roundball Rock, and we're doing an analysis of it, we probably could have got away with it. Even then, like there's a guy named Rick Beato he's like a hardcore musician on YouTube. If you're not a musician, you wouldn't be interested in his stuff, but he does like analysis of these songs and he will play them himself because he's way better than I am, professional producer. Even then he gets pegged with copyrights. Like he can't do Pink Floyd because Pink Floyd are obnoxious, about it. He can't do like Zeppelin, I think. So that's called the fair use doctrine. It's not really limited to a time. It's limited to what you're doing with the material.
Gotcha. All right. Well, there we go. So, congrats, John Tesh, on your latest pile.
Not yet. Not yet.
Eventually.
The story is that NBC has not yet handed over the pile of cash, but now because they were stupid enough to announce it ahead of time, they really don't have a choice but to pay him the pile of cash. And he's going basically, I'll go sell it to Amazon. That's what he's saying, which obviously NBC can't have that happen. So Tesh will get his money. Congratulations. Finally, a musician that outsmarted their corporate overlords. So I'm happy for John Tesh.
There you go, John Tesh.
I remember like years ago, do you remember TLC, the R&B group?
Sure.
I think it was TLC. There was a clip I saw, and I saw it again recently, where one of the singers, and don't ask me who, I don't know who they are. She said, okay, let me tell you how you can sell 6 million albums and be broke. And I know Chris knows this. So artists will have, when they're under contract with a record company, a very, very small percentage of they call them points. And there's 100 points. And they'll have a very, very small number of points. So they'll, like in the case of TLC, I think they had like 6 points, 6 or 8 points, meaning 8 cents on the dollar. So if they sold an album for $10, then they're getting 60 cents per album. And then the record company is getting $9.40. And then out of the 60 cents comes producers' fees, managers' fees,
marketing,
marketing, the marketing that the record company did for you comes out of the 60 cents. So at the end of it all, they're going to get a very, very small amount of money. And that is why you see so many artists not have any money. So and now it's changed a little bit now because streaming, is such that artists can produce music without record companies and get it to stream, but the streamers pay them almost nothing for a view. And so they're not really making any money on recorded music anymore. They were making only a little bit before, and now they're making almost zero.
And then you see some like landmark artists who do own their catalog. This has happened a number of times in the last couple of years, and then they'll sell it. I think Dylan sold his for like 600 million or something.
Well, yeah,
like that.
and like Pink Floyd has been trying, but they're such a train wreck. They can't get it together. Pink Floyd, Queen just sold it for $1 billion.
Right.
I think.
So that's just become, when these guys get older,
they want to cash out. They don't.
Right.
Care
It's
anymore.
just a big payday, right?
And Dylan's like 180 years old, by now, and he's just not.
Yeah. Sold, some massive amount of money. So
Kiss just did it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Have you gotten your Kiss coffin yet?
Their career is in the coffin with they can't even play live music anymore.
No, I mean, they got to be pushing 80, right?
I think Gene Simmons is the oldest one. I think he's in his mid 70s, and then Paul Stanley's a couple years younger, and nobody cares about the other two. So,
right. Well, there you go, Steve. So, Steve, not as much wine and roses probably on some of the more recent hog size.
No, but I mean, we've always strive to be fair and down the middle on the hog sty, and I think we all called the Steelers' loss, and 2 of the 3 of us called the Eagles' loss. It is what it is. So, but you can hear us talk about all this stuff every Thursday. That's when the shows are released, except when it's a Thursday game, then we did it'll be on Wednesday. But then we have all of our regular written content.
There you go. So we will see you in 2 weeks.